Hello, this is Lawrence Holvey, and this is the start of a new video. And what we're doing is looking at patients who have a story to tell. So I'm kicking off the first one with somebody who's almost a century old. He's got an interesting history. He's fought in the Second World War. He's lived in England for the past 60 years plus, well, in fact, longer, I think. And so before we talk about his back problems, just a brief history, because I know that Alfred came originally from America. He fought in the Second World War just shortly after D-Day, and perhaps he'd like to give a very brief introduction about your history coming to the UK and your experience, because I know people will be interested to hear your brief experience in the Second World War, because there's very few remaining from that era.
Well, hello. May I call you Lawrence?
You can.
Yes, thank you. Yes, that's true. I was only a farm boy, and I trained actually for from California, oranges, in fact. And I trained in Florida in the U.S. Army, and expected to go back to California and into the Pacific. I was familiar with Caterpillar tractors, so I had an engineering background, knew how to handle diesels. So I was assigned as an engineer on boats, that is, boats for landing boats, that sort of thing, which had big diesel engines in them, but they do operate the same as small ones, so I had no trouble with that. However, they said, okay, in Florida one morning, I think it was, and said, get on the train. So I got on the train, and the train I expected to go west, but it went north. And I ended up in Liverpool, to my surprise and everyone else's for that matter. However, we ended up after D-Day, actually, in Normandy, and I spent a little time there, and then to Le Havre, and running large diesels on boats. The war ended, and I went up to Antwerp and finally Holland. And as a consequence of this was just after the liberation of Holland, and the end of the war came immediately after. The thing was that we were delivering material to Holland in order to because they were empty. The Dutch had, the Nazis had taken everything out of Holland. Well, the consequences of that, I went back to the United States and I studied engineering and ended up actually going back and visiting once more to see the parts of Europe that I had not seen during the war.
And then you moved to the UK. I think it was 1964. You said.
Well, I was just leading up to how all this happened, and the actuality was I did marry a European and came back to Europe with an engineering company, and spent the rest of my life in France, Holland, and England, and came to England in 1964 and have been here ever since. I thought for a few years, actually, but the consequences are with family and all that, it's difficult to move, and I actually did not want to because life was good here in Europe in those days. little bit of a problem now.
And so you've continued to live in the UK since then, and now to sort of seek into why you came to see me, because you've had chronic back problems. But
well, yes, I had no real health problems until I was 90 when I gave up my allotment because I was getting a little pain in the bottom of my back after a long auto ride. The pain in my back continued to increase, but as I'm near 98 now, it's improved quite slowly. But in the last 3 years, I've needed attention, and it was given to me by searching out an osteopath or a chiropractor. But because I'd had a treatment.
We never mention chiropractors anymore.
Oh, well, they were about in those days when I was talking about it, because I had a treatment 20 years ago because of a back pain in my upper back. My problem now is in my lower back, lower spine region.
So I think to go through your history, when you first saw me, I think it was several years ago, of increasing back pain. With osteopathic treatment, you improved, and then it was decided, because the improvement lasted in those days a few weeks, but it was decreasing the amount of improvement, and that's when I sent you for an MRI scan, and there it was discovered that there was a lot of disc degeneration, and we both decided the best course was maybe to try some steroidal injections to calm it all down. And what are your reflections of that, of the steroid? Because that was done initially a couple of years ago.
That's true. Yes, it was, but it was an injection only. There was no particular treatment, but the pain was reduced in my lower spine. But I think you explained to me one time that some pains were arising further out towards my hip, but that was caused by pain starting in the spine but ending up in the muscles. And the injections I had from a surgeon, he only dealt with bones. He said the problem is now muscular. So I've had treatments from you ever since.
And then with what, I mean, what's your experience of the treatment? I mean, how much does it relieve at the time? I mean, how was back affecting you?
Well, it's almost magical, you might say. You give me a treatment and I can feel it when you reach those sensitive parts of a muscle that are affected, and you think, oh, it's going to be a bit difficult. But when you finish the treatment and you stand up, the pain is entirely gone. So it's a great relief to be able to walk normally and not bend over a bit to alleviate, because the MRI did show a lot of
problems,
destruction of the bones or tissues in my lower spine region.
And do you feel that with treatment, at least, it gives you more movement and less pain, and it gives you a period of relief?
Well, of course. That's why I continue to go back to you, because it is a treatment that adds relief. After a day or so, it gets less, and the pain stems from my weight apparently pressing on my spine, because I don't have, fortunately, any serious problem lying in bed, for example, when the weight is off my spine. And so it lasts about 5 days at least, and then the pain starts recurring
slow.
more seriously.
I mean, that's the thing with your back. Although it's not curable, at least you get relief. And so when you,
oh yeah, a great deal. In fact, is after a few days, you can move it much easier.
But and what is your message to, let's say, people of the older generation? I mean, you're, let's face it, almost a century old. So, and you're still going pretty strong. So do you have a message for those youngsters of over let's say 80 plus? I mean, what is your message regarding treatment?
Well, try it, and the treatment itself it feels good at the time, and if you have any serious muscular pain, normally you might discover that it's relieved for some days afterwards.
Yeah. So
that's my situation,
and
that's why I continue.
And it helps you continue moving around and being self-reliant.
Oh yeah, oh yes. And I must say that I do use mobility aids, that is Scandinavian canes, to walk. And because they take some weight off my lower spine. That's what I'm told, but it stabilizes me. And, you know, at 98, essentially, because I'll be 98 next week.
Yeah, well, that's why this is a special celebration. That's why we're kicking off the videos with you.
Well, anyhow,
and finally, and that's sort of your back. And so with treatment, we hopefully keep you active and mobile as long as is necessary.
Well, yes, and of course I call on you when I start feeling poorly again, or when the pain goes beyond a certain mark, because it does. It's when I stand, you see, and I want to remain mobile as long as I can, and I still have a driver's license, for example, and so that is helpful, and I have no trouble sitting. Well, it's helpful. Driving a car is no problem at all. But walking, it's convenient to get down to the pub. Yeah, because I have one not too far off, and I can manage that.
And finally, for anybody, for all the listeners and people looking at this video, do you have any message? What do you attribute your long, healthy life to? Any messages? any advice that you can give?
Good luck for a lot of it. Being in the war is one thing, and made that got through that okay, and the other thing is I had good health, maybe fortunately.
You've always been pretty active.
Oh yes, skiing and all that sort of thing. Yes, I hated giving up skiing, but
what age did you?
I was working all over the world in any event as an engineer.
And you've also done a lot of gardening, haven't you? You've always been outside walking.
Would you repeat that, please?
You've always done quite a bit of activity, like garden, physical.
Oh yes, I was a farmer. So when I retired, which was fairly late, I was in my late 70s, I think. I was working in South Africa when I was. Yeah. Anyhow, the thing was, I had an allotment immediately after I retired. I had it for some years until I was 90 years old.
So your message would be keep active, keep smiling.
Yes, of course, keep smiling and keep mobile
Keep mobile.
as long as possible.
Well, those are
people that don't are not active have more problems than I do.
Yeah, I've often written about that how important activity is. So, well, on that
Yeah.
on that bombshell, thank you very much for being the first person in this interview, and maybe we will recap in a year's time to see how you're doing, whether you're managing to get to the
Hey,
pubs.
good luck to both of us.
So thank you very much, and we'll sign off now, and I'll no doubt see you next week to do your back again.
Very likely. Well, it's okay for the moment. We just had the treatment recently, didn't we?
So long may that remain. So hope to see you next week.
Thank you, Dr. Hovey, and it's been an interesting experience for me too.
Okay then. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.